Okay, more tutorials. So today we are going to be working on, you guys, today we're going to be working on the fairy for Saturday. Let's see. In the family room, you can find it in the people folder. So this is the fairy. And there's a little bit more to this one. So let's go over supplies because you're going to have a bunch of supplies. I think I can get rid of that plate. All right. So they're going to need an extra plate because they're going to use that to sketch on their moon. They're going to need a large flat brush, kind of all the regulars, small, flat, or filbert, and little round. If they want to use, hey, that's enough. If they want to use the tinier little round, that's fine too. And let's see, they're going to need a Sharpie and a pencil. And I think that's all as far as those kind of things. And then when they actually paint or draw on the fairy itself, they're going to use a traceable stencil and a piece of the black carbon paper. So I probably wouldn't give this out right away. I'd wait until like the end, like after break, and then you can hand these out. Otherwise, they're going to get paint and stuff on them. Okay, so, and the stencil, I keep the stencils in the folder, in the family room, in the art folder. There's a stencil folder, so it'll be in there. And I'll probably just print them out for you, but just going forward, you'll know that's where the stencils are. And I print these out in landscape at 130%. So to get them the right size. All right, so supplies and then paints. So we're gonna need white, of course. Black. You could even wait and give them the black at the end too, because they're not going to use it until later. You're going to need both blues. I use more of the cobalt than I do the dark blue. I'm going to get a little bit of red. A touch of yellow. Just a tiny bit of yellow. And the phthalo green. We're going to use the phthalo. Let him have his toy. Knock it off. Okay. So, those are colors. They're also going to need some extra paper towel for sponging. And I just like to rip these in half And that way they'll have like 4 little pieces. Okay, so where we're going to start is sketching on our horizon line and then putting the moon down. So I'm going to come up just a little bit more than a third from the bottom and just sketch in the horizon line. And then I'm going to lay this plate on here, and I like it to come down below so it looks like it's kind of going down. And give that a little trace. And then we're going to start with the background. So I'm going to use my big square, big flat, and I'm going to make up just a really bright kind of greenish turquoise shade. So my phthalo, and then we're going to use a lot of white. So nice and light. And we're going to come in here and just put down a nice little thin coat. So we're kind of doing this background like we do the like the Milky Way, you know, we put down a background and then we sponge on top of it. Oh, another thing that I was going to say, it's kind of good to have is a baby wipe or two, and I'll show you why. If they accidentally get their turquoise into their moon, they can just take that baby wipe and clean out the paint if they get in there really bad. All right, so I'm going to do the moon, and I'm also going to come down and do my water. I'm just going to work that lighter color here in the center. Buster, do you have his toy again? Probably. Okay. So, like I said, that they can use that baby wipe to clean that up a little bit if they need to. All right, so sky and then the water, and then I'm just going to rinse out my brush a little bit here, and I'm going to grab some of my ultramarine blue and just a little bit of red. I'm gonna make a dark purple. And I'm going to use this to do little pulls in from the edge. I use that full side of the brush just to get it in there, and then they can tip that brush over to the sharp edge to get some of those little points. We want it darker on the sides and have the moonlight in the middle. I'll have them put that in like that, and then what they can do is rinse their brush. And we're just going to blend. So I'm just going to go back into some of my light blue. And I'm going to use that right in here to help blend, kind of pull some of those purples on in and just blend, 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 blend. All right. Okay. Okay, so now what we're going to work on is the sponging. So I'm going to be using some of this purple. So I'm going to make like a darker purple, a little bit more blue, and then I'm going to make more of like a magenta. So more red, just a tiny, tiny bit of blue so that we have two different purples to play with. Okay, so I'm gonna start with my pink, my magenta, and just gonna start with it like red first. And I pat and then I rub to soften it out. Pat and rub, pat and rub. And if they accidentally get into their moon, they can just take that baby wipe and clean it out. Okay, so we're just doing a little sponging in here. Letting some of that turquoise blue show through too, though. So I'll place some of the darker color and then I'll lighten it up just a little bit with some white, just so I get some brighter areas of pink. And like I was mentioning earlier, I always like to kind of um, pull these apart and make them little squares, because a lot of times they'll use like a full sheet and it'll be really big and really they don't, they're trying to sponge in these little tiny areas with this great big huge piece of paper towel. So the more tiny it is, the more control they're going to have. Okay, so I did the magenta, and now I'm going to play around with my purples. I am going to add a little bit of white to my purple so it's not too dark. And maybe a little bit darker. Here we go. I want some dark areas in here. Pat and rub, pat and rub. I have it a little darker over here on the edges. Okay, that's good. If I remember right, I think I used to like take some of this too, and I don't know, not really necessary, I guess. Okay, so we've got our sky and our water. Now we're going to do the moon, and then it'll be break time. So what I like to have them do with the moon is take their big brush, and we're going to come in here and paint this in. And I'm just going to I think I'm going to paint like this half first. I'm going to paint half because I want the paint to stay wet. So I'll do this half first. Okay, so once I got that wet paint on there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to go into some of that lighter shade of purple that we were just using. And Let's start over here on the edges of the moon and make some elongated looking craters. It kind of looks like they're bending around, they're going around the other side. And then I'll work a few in here to the center and just rubbing, just making those craters in the moon, little shadows. Now what they want to stay away from is doing little polka dots like that, because that's a lot of times that's what people do. They want them to make them look like continents almost, very amoeba shape. They want like fingers and stuff coming off of them. Now, if they go a little crazy, they can always come back in with a little bit of the white and use the white to soften and blend out any of these. But like I said, I do one side because once the paint starts drying up, this just doesn't work quite as well. I do one side and then have them do the other side. And we're almost at break time. So this is going to take up quite a bit of time. And really all that's left to do after this is the fairy and the black details. So you can take your time and let them have time for all this stuff, because this is what makes the painting really pretty. All right, a little bit more purple. Oh, I went really cray. Blend that in. Too much paint. Use a little bit of white. Okay. Gonna leave that alone. I'm gonna let that dry. I'm gonna stop the video so I can let the yahoos outside to go potty. And we'll pick up here in a little bit. So actually, I'm just gonna fix my moon just a little bit. Okay, just wanted to fix those edges. Okay, break time. I'll be back in a little bit.